शरणं गच्छामि
बुद्धं शरणं गच्छामि
धम्मं शरणं गच्छामि
धम्मं शरणं गच्छामि
संघं शरणं गच्छामि
संघं शरणं गच्छामि
बुद्धं शरणं गच्छामि
बुद्धं शरणं गच्छामि
धम्मं शरणं गच्छामि
धम्मं शरणं गच्छामि
संघं शरणं गच्छामि
संघं शरणं गच्छामि
बुद्धं शरणं गच्छामि
बुद्धं शरणं गच्छामि
धम्मं शरणं गच्छामि
धम्मं शरणं गच्छामि
संघं शरणं गच्छामि
संघं शरणं गच्छामि
बुद्धं शरणं गच्छामि
बुद्धं शरणं गच्छामि
धम्मं शरणं गच्छामि
धम्मं शरणं गच्छामि
संघं शरणं गच्छामि
संघं शरणं गच्छामि
बुद्धं शरणं गच्छामि
बुद्धं शरणं गच्छामि
धम्मं शरणं गच्छामि
धम्मं शरणं गच्छामि
संघं शरणं गच्छामि
संघं शरणं गच्छामि
gacchami.
Dhammam saranam gacchami.
Sangham saranam gacchami.
Sangham saranam gacchami.
Buddham saranam gacchami.
Buddham saranam gacchami.
Dhammam saranam gacchami.
Dhammam saranam gacchami.
Sangham saranam gacchami.
Sangham saranam gacchami.
Buddham saranam gacchami.
Buddham saranam gacchami.
Dhammam saranam gacchami.
Dhammam saranam gacchami.
Sangham saranam gacchami.
Sangham saranam gacchami.
Buddham saranam gacchami.
Buddham saranam gacchami.
Dhammam saranam gacchami.
Dhammam saranam gacchami.
Sangham saranam gacchami.
Sangham saranam gacchami.
Buddham saranam gacchami.
Buddham saranam gacchami.
Dhammam saranam gacchami.
Dhammam saranam gacchami.
Sangham saranam gacchami.
Sangham saranam gacchami.
Buddham saranam gacchami.
Buddham saranam gacchami.
Dhammam saranam gacchami.
Dhammam saranam gacchami.
Greetings from Ashtanga Yoga Mandir. Thank you for joining the sixth session of the DHYANA meditation series. Today's discourse is on Kayanupassana leading to Chittanupassana, conducted by Venerable Kalubovila Ananda Theru. A special note of appreciation goes out to Captain Anura Abesekara and Ms. Varuni Bibili, a senior instructress of AYM, for introducing His Holiness to Ashtanga Yoga Mandir to assist us with conducting the program. Before we proceed, there are a few important points that needs to be adhered to and noted by the audience. Please keep your microphones muted during the session. Please note that questions can only be raised through chat. Kindly switch on your video as a mark of respect. If this cannot be accommodated, do inform us in advance. Access to any account which creates undue disruption during the program, intentionally or unintentionally, will be revoked and thus will not be able to attend the session. With that, let me hand over the controls to Mrs. Bibile to welcome our distinguished speaker. Over to you.
Reverend Kalubovila Ananda Theru is a residential monk at Vimalajnana Viharaya in Homagama under Reverend Monaragala Panyalankara Theru. Kalubovila Ananda Theru is the meditation instructor in Prajna TV, Relax TV, and in Prajna Arana in Bulat Sinhala. He also has learned yoga in Rishikesh. Kalubovila Ananda Theru has been ordained 3 years ago. Before being ordained, he has been an alumni of Royal College of Colombo. And he holds his Bachelor's of Science degree in Chemical and Process Engineering. Was reading for his PhD in Innovation and Entrepreneurship in University of Moratuwa. He also has been a visiting lecturer in University of Sri Jayewardenepura. He was the founder of Skills to Work organization and has worked in many multinational companies in Sri Lanka and abroad. Swamin Wahansa, with DHYANA program, we are all experiencing a spiritual transformation. It is an unknown terrain to most of us, and we need guidance. Reverend Kalubovila Ananda Theru, I invite you to be our guide tonight. Avasarai Swamin Wahansa.
Thank you, Varuni. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. So I'm first of all, I'm very thankful for the Ashtanga Yoga community that you have invited me, and especially the fact that you are looking at spiritual guidance. In fact, half of what I want to say is about how do we use this physical exercise into a more spiritual practice. That's why I even said when Varuni proposed, Vyasa proposed when initially, let's have a session called Kayanupassana leading to Chittanupassana. Um, so broadly speaking, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to speaking about a few things during today's discussion. So there will be a part where I will be addressing uh, at the body level or more of a therapeutic practice. Then I will be also looking at a therapeutic narrative and self-awareness. Now I'll tell you what each means, but before going to that, let me show you that they are somewhat linked into body, mind, and words. Now, Kaya, Vachana, Chitta. So, Chittanupassana coming from the term Chit or Sitta. That is basically the mind. And Kaya, everyone knows that it's talking about the body. Now, what does a therapeutic practice mean? It's, let's for a moment say it's all about the body and all about the body and the mind. Now, I don't have to tell you a lot about what body and mind is because you guys are quite advanced when it comes to body and mind. But let me anyway tell you a few things about body and mind. That whenever we have some neighbors in Sri Lanka next to our Homagama temple, and a fascinating story that I always tell to people that one day they have discovered a cat in their well, but the cat has decayed so much it was almost unrecognizable, like totally decayed, and you only find the remnants of the cat. And the moment that they opened the well and discovered that the cat has fallen into the well, they started falling sick. Everyone was throwing up, they were getting diarrhea, etc. Now, they were not faking the symptoms, but to see that even the household, the husband said, Swami Wahanse, if we hadn't noticed the cat on the well, we could have, it went, if it had it been the fact that we did not notice that, we would have not gotten ill. We would not start throwing up. We will not be getting diarrhea. So I think that's a fantastic case to show how mind and body is so connected. And also often when you travel into Far East, especially countries like Cambodia, China, Philippines, you find some items or food items on the roadside that which you don't usually find in Sri Lanka or in that matter for in Europe. For example, you could find this uh, a snake in a stick, where you find a snake on a stick, or you could find this very smelly duck egg, which has a duck inside called balut in Philippines. So you find all this type of meat, and then your body starts reacting accordingly. I have seen many people who are not so adventurous with their food, trying this meat, and they fall sick. And in fact, my mother, who was not a vegetarian from the beginning, but 10, 15 years ago, she became a fully vegetarian person. Even though she cooks for the children, she was vegetarian. And I remember her complaining that when she eats meat, she sort of get allergic. So by all these stories, what I wanted to tell you is that sometimes our body and mind are connected in a way such that a small change in mind affects the body a lot in a very physical level. Then about the other part, which is the therapeutic narrative. Now, every one of us knows what a narrative is. It's basically a story. And in the words or the vachana, the therapeutic narrative, I'm not talking about really a word that you utter per se. I'm talking about your mind chatter, what is in here, that you continuously have a chat. And I'm talking about that chat. And I can help you with a therapeutic narrative for that chat. But most importantly, I really want you to get through my speech, the self-awareness part. And suppose that if I'm a doctor and if I have medicine for your diarrhea or for any illness, I could give you a pill. So my pill should be the therapeutic practice or the therapeutic narrative. But what I really want you to do is to teach you medicine. I think that's what would most benefit you, because you can self-heal yourself. So I will try to introduce a bit of therapeutic practice, therapeutic narrative into my discussion. However, I want to focus much more on the self-awareness part. Right. So having said that, let me ask you a question. Now, you guys are yogis. I'm sure that you guys have been practicing for a long time. And it's, in fact, quite interesting that I happen to be not a pro of yoga, but I do practice my yoga. I have spent some time in Rishikesh and learned the ways of yoga. So it's really interesting that I get to speak to advanced yoga practitioners like you. So let me ask the question, rhetorical, of course, because we can't turn on the mics. What's the purpose of yoga? Why do we do yoga? Now, many of you might have different answers as to why we do yoga. But let me tell you, when in the beginning, if you look at the beginnings of yoga, Sapta Rishis, like or Brahma Rishis, like Kashyapa, Atri, Vashisht, Vishwamitra, Gautama, etc. Now, when they practiced yoga, it wasn't for merely a physical exercise per se. They were looking at a moksha marga. Now, what is a moksha marga? Two common terms, if you try to look into Indian culture or Indian music or Indian literature, you find the two words karma, moksha, and samsara. Those three are very colloquially used. So the Holy Trinity again. I'm sure that there are many philosophers in this forum itself who would have a better understanding of Hinduism than me. So the Holy Trinity, Brahma, who's the creator, Vishnu, who helps, or who's the preserver, or Shiva, who's the destroyer. He's the one that I like the most. So you find these deities. So some could say that it's a deity. These are deities. The Holy Trinity is a deity. But another way to look at it is that Holy Trinity could be a phenomena rather than a deity. It's you are free to take it the way you like. If you take Buddhism, in Buddhism, there's this concept called Upachaya Santiti Jarata Anichata. So what does that mean? Something has a start, Upachaya, and then Santiti, a continuation, a preservance, and Jarata, which changes in its form, which means it's ending from one form to another form. And Anichata means the continuous change. Now, Anichata again can be interpreted in many ways. However, I find that there's much similarity to Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva versus Upachaya Santiti Jarata. And again, when Brahma Rishis were appointed by Brahma, but essentially the Sapta Rishis, Brahma Rishis, they were helping out Shiva time to time. And the story says that Sapta Rishis come and go time to time. So we are talking about the Sapta Rishis in this period. So these Sapta Rishis practiced yoga. Now, when they practiced yoga, you know about the 8 limbs of yoga, the Ashtanga, what Ashtanga means, the Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, etc., etc. And if you look at Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, you would find a similarity that it's a little to do with your body, a mind, and something beyond mind and body. And the unison of that is called yoga in 8-fold path. Again, drawing some similarities to Buddhism, you find the 8-fold path of Buddhism called Arya Ashtangika Marga. So again, if we look what mind, body, and extra mind and body means to you, let's start with body. So we do a lot of stretching exercises, etc., etc. Now, is that similar to doing a high intensity interval training, which I also do sometimes, which is quite useful if you have to burn your fat, if you have to reduce weight, high intensity interval training. Nothing to do with mind, you just do it. It's sweat, workout, that's it. So are we doing yoga when we talk about why are we a yogi or yogini? Are we doing yoga in that sense, the same way that we do high intensity interval training or whatever the physical training that you come across? Or are you doing in the sense that it's a positive thinking tool or a tool to help your mind? Or when you say body, mind, and soul, is this all about chanting a shloka, sorry, chanting a shloka or continuing a puja. Again, about this aspect of puja, for example, I have seen in India, the real yogis in Rishikesh, how they prepare for the yoga, how they do the yoga. It's absolutely fantastic to look at it. The amount of piousness, the commitment, and how well they prepare for the entire puja, like Agni Puja, where they do at the beaches, the banks of the Ganga river Ganga. So when we say we are a yogini, are we doing the physical part of yoga like we do high intensity interval training? Or are we doing the mind part like positive thinkers, or to relax our mind, to relax our, do the shavasana and relax our mind? Is that our objective? Or is the medicine for our soul, is it merely a puja or a shloka? I just want you to reflect a little on that. In fact, if you see the practices of yoga that you will find, like for example, in the ashram in Rishikesh, they had the morning session, and right after at 7:30, we have the satsang, which is a very important part of the yogic lifestyle. And I think right now what we are having is a satsang. Again, drawing a parallel from Buddhism, there are four things which are essential for a person to pursue in his spiritual path, according to Buddhism. And one thing is Kalyana Mitra Sevanya. Kalyana Mitra Sevanya, which means again satsang. You have a discussion with a person who could help you, who could give you feedback, who could reflect on you, who could see the things that you can't see about yourself. For example, if there's a fly right now on top of my face, I won't be able to see that. You will be able to see that. And if I'm humble enough to accept your opinion, you can give me the opinion. So satsang. And again, let me thank again Ashtanga Yoga for organizing this fantastic session, because satsang is really a huge part of yoga or the lifestyle of yoga. So all in all, wherever I look, if you read the Vedas, if you look at the literature, I find yoga far beyond a mere physical exercise. It's not like high intensity interval training, but it's a moksha marga. Now, what does a moksha marga means? So let's say we don't have to necessarily subscribe to this idea. I'm quoting from the Vedas or Indian literature, that if we have a wheel of samsara or a chakra, a cycle of existence, and if there's a way out to be with Brahman, to be with yourself, oneness, moksha, enlightenment, nibbana, whatever you call it, whatever you would like to call it, be with the God, be in the heaven, there's an exit. And yoga is developed, is practiced with this thing, this single thing in mind. So are we doing that as yogis and yoginis right now? Especially, most of you, I'm sure, are teachers as well. So when we think about yoga, are we looking at the full spectrum of yoga, or are we focusing on one small thing? I wanted to sort of self-reflect on that fact, that there's bhakti yoga, there's karma yoga, where it's a daily thing. It's a continuous thing. It's a 24/7, 365-day thing. Raja Yoga, or the lifestyle yoga, is really a lifestyle. We cannot summarize or simplify yoga to a 1-hour practice session at a gymnasium over a yoga mat from 6:30 to 7:30. It is definitely not that. And why I'm telling you again, I'll tell you a small story. Before, like Varuni mentioned, I was not a monk all my adult life. When I was young, I started going to a Latin and ballroom class. And then I got pretty serious with Latin and ballroom. And the initial reason I went to that Latin and ballroom class, because there were cute girls. And that's the reason that I subscribed to that class. But then again, after a couple of years, I found that Latin and ballroom is not about hugging someone and dancing. It's much more. It's quite meditational. It's like yoga. It's meditational. So if I say someone who's coming to dance, that you should look at the meditational aspect of it, because you are a spiritual guy, it wouldn't last for long. So you come for something else, but you end up pursuing on a totally different path. So likewise, I'm sure that you came to yoga for some reason. Maybe it's to reduce your weight, maybe some reason that you saw a nice poster or saw these beautiful posters that the yoga teachers put up. We don't know what. But now that you are in this path, I want you to understand that yoga or Raja Yoga is absolutely not about an exercise. It's a moksha marker. It's a path of enlightenment. It's a path of to be one with the God, to be one with the Brahman, right? So I will elaborate one by one what is my perspective as a Buddhist monk, more than a Buddhist monk, as a spiritual seeker or someone who's in a path of spirituality, right? We call ourselves Buddhist, Christian, Islam, Hindu, etc., etc. But all in all, I know that everyone is in a spiritual path. Our content might change, our language might change, what we believe might change, but we have this direction of spirituality. So again, I want you to understand that yoga is a path of spirituality where Sapta Rishis practice to help Shiva, the Adiyogi, right? So it's absolutely not about a mere physical exercise. Now, having said that, what type of a yogi are you? What is your answer? Are you doing yoga because you want to be happy, or is that it's a quite trendy thing, or are you fighting a depression, or is it just boredom, or is it to show off? You know, if you look at Instagram, it's almost impossible to find that someone who doesn't do yoga now. It's so pop culture. It's so mainstream. You know, if you don't do yoga, you are like outdated, even within not only with the elderly population, but also with the kids these days. Yoga is a mainstream practice. So are we just following a trend? Have we started yoga because we wanted to sort of get out of a depressive state of mind? Or is it something beyond that? Now, I want you to question, after this session today, I want to question what is your motive? And whatever the motive you have, that is absolutely fine. It's okay to have whatever the motive, but I want you to understand when Sapta Rishis, the Brahma Rishis, when Brahma appointed the Sapta Rishis and asked them to do yoga, or when they started practicing yoga, it wasn't for any of those reasons. It was purely meant as a path of enlightenment or a moksha marker. Right. Now, let's forget yoga for a moment and think for yourself, why do you do anything? Why do you do anything? What makes you do anything in your life? Study, work, take a jog, take a nap, meditate. What's the reason that you do anything? Since that I'm asking all rhetorical questions and that you can't talk, I will answer myself and see if it relates to you. I think whenever we do something, we feel happy about it. We feel nice about doing that. Or there's some relief. We relieve of certain tensions. Eventually, it fulfills us. It gives us peace. So whatever we do, we don't do something if it's giving us a negative emotion, like if it's not fulfilling us, or if it's not trying to satisfy us, or if it would not relieve us from anything, we would not do that. Anything in life, not only yoga, anything. So essentially, we could say in an oversimplified manner, if I may, that we do things to satisfy ourselves, to fulfill ourselves. Now, before going there, now that I told yoga is not about body only, I want you to understand it from a different perspective today. Like it was mentioned in the beginning that we are doing this session to understand a part of spirituality. Right. So, you know, waning and the waxing of the moon, it's a very common, naturally occurring phenomena. So the moon keeps growing and the moon keeps waning off. If you see, even the word lunacy, lunatic, it's quite close to, they say that when there's moon, people go bonkers, people get lunatic. In a way that if you take astrology, things like astrology, you find that the mind, chitta, is always connected to the moon. Moon has a lot to do with our mind. So what I want you to understand is that during this discussion today, I'm going to talk a lot about mind. Actually, I'm not going to talk a lot about your minds. I'm going to talk a lot about my mind. And since we have the same physical nature, we are same species, and we speak the same language, and more or less we are in the same belief system, I think that talking my mind or reflecting on my mind would help you to reflect on your mind. Right. So again, when you look at mind, if you look at mind, take something like a Sanskrit term like Vinyana Bahirava Tantra. Vinyana Bahirava Tantra. Now, Rava, Bahirava. Rava means sound. Bahi means extra, out of the sound. And Vinyana Bahirava Tantra. What is out of the chatter of your mind? Tantra means practice. It could mean practice. So a practice which is out, which is extra mental. And also, if you look at the Mandukya Upanishad, you find that 4 status of consciousness. There's the waking, Jagarat, dreaming, Swapna, the deep sleep, Susupti. And there's a 4th stage called Turiya, which is not included in these 3 categories. And again, if you look at Buddhism, the more technical versions of Buddhism like Abhidharma, you find Chitta, Chaitisika, Rupa, Nibbana. So in these books, they explain about the existential things like Chitta, Chaitisika, Rupa. Let's say for the simplicity that it's about mind. But it also describes about something called Nibbana or enlightenment. But that is the least described thing in the text. And again, if you look at Veda in Rig, that you will see that Turiya is never explained. It only says that Turiya is neither Jagarat, waking, neither Swapna, dreaming, neither deep sleep, neither Susupti. That's what it says. However, time to time, scholars try to define enlightenment. Scholars try to define what Turiya is. Scholars try to define these things. I think more or less they fail in what they're trying to do, because how can we understand something that we don't know? Because everything that we understand, we do it with our mind. Now, let me get to that. Why did I say that? When I show you this image, and if I ask you to imagine a demon or a devil or a ghost, you would have certain imagination. Oh, so I didn't show you anything. Sorry. So if I ask you to take a mental image of a demon or a devil or a ghost, regardless of what religion you follow, just have a mental image of a demon. Now, something would have come to your mind, and something would have come to your mind would be something like this. Maybe a more scary version. This is the nicer version, Casper the Friendly Ghost. Now, you would think that you have the ability to think about anything possible in the world. But I'm going to tell you that although we think that way, we cannot think of anything. When I ask you to take a mental note, picture a demon or a ghost, you could only think of certain pictures, right? So you would think of a ghost who's human-like, or you would think of a ghost who's animal-like, or you would think of a ghost who's hybrid, animal and human both. But you would never think of a ghost like a web camera, or a router, or a computer. You don't think of a ghost like that. So I want you to understand your mind. Oh, I'm at least trying to talk about my mind, that when we think, our thoughts are really chained. We don't have the full freedom to think anything. So it's like a cow who's grazing, who's tied onto a pole with a rope. He thinks that he can graze around freely, roaming everywhere, although he thinks that he can only navigate or roam freely during the amount of the amount of the length that the rope will provide him to go freely. So likewise, our mind, although we think that we are quite creative, we can think of anything, that our mind is limitless, it is not so. We are quite bound by a certain limit of our mind. I also want you to tell a small Zen story, right? I'm sure that you have heard about this Zen story of a Zen master and a student. So this student is a quite educated person. One day he wanted to go and talk to this Zen master, who's an enlightened Zen master. So he wanted to get deep into his wisdom, the student, and he said, "Master, teach me your wisdom." The master said, "Fine, take a seat. Let's have some tea." So the master had two cups in front of in front of them on the table. He was pouring from the pot and telling he was pouring tea from the pot. He was pouring so much that the cup was full of tea and it started overflowing. And the student said, "Master, it's enough. You're putting too much tea on the cup. Stop it now." And then everyone know how the story goes. The master said, "See, son, you are also full of yourself. Until you empty your cup, um, I can't teach you anything new." Now, that's the story that we hear. But there's a deeper meaning to that Zen story. Imagine a person who's not, who's not arrogant with his knowledge, who's not full of himself. A very humble person, very down to earth, very open person. Even an open person like that still can't fully empty his cup. Why? Because when I say ghost, you can only think of a particular ghost picture. I can ask you think about 100 ghosts. Still, you can only think of certain 100 ghosts. And what one person would think would be quite different to what the other person think. Having said that, I'm sure that most of you have seen the devil dances in Sri Lanka, like the Hatasanya. And I think there's some experts here as well in the forum. So if you haven't seen a devil dance, Sri Lanka has this dance where there's a devil who, there's a crew, there's a cast, they come and have this devil dance, and there's 18 masks. They wear 18 masks. So the story is that they represent 18 characters. But again, I want to look at it this way. In this Dahatasanya, or in that particular act, is that 18 characters, or is that 18 possible characteristics a mind could have? Sometimes you are furious, sometimes you are filled with fury, anger. Sometimes you are quite sarcastic, sometimes you are funny, sometimes you are very lustful, sometimes you are very greedy. So in a way that you might see that I'm trying to give away a message that instead of externalizing things, we should look at it from a different perspective, a perspective of mind, an internal perspective. So this 18 moods a person have, I'm going to propose you that these 18 moods are quite habitual. In fact, most of the things that you do are quite habitual. They are just habitual, unconscious acts that you do. I'll tell you why. Whenever people come to this temple and whenever they sit in front of me, they sit in a particular way, in a way that it shows respect. And when they see the statue, they always bow down with this. But someone who's not trained that way, let's say some African person, African bushman comes to our temple, he would not sit like that in front of me. He would not bow down in front of the statue. So he acts in a different way. And every action that you have, isn't it somehow habitual? Now I'll elaborate this point. Sometimes when we don't, during the corona, during the lockdown, when we when the temple was closed and we were not receiving alms, our food basically, we were cooking. And during cooking that we had to move, I was moving a pot from one plate to the one cooker to the other cooker. And then I realized something, I had an epiphany that sometimes there's a way that you react to hotness or temperature, right? So the immediate reaction would be you take out your hand involuntarily, and basically that would be the immediate reaction. But again, if you look at it closely, if you don't succumb to your habit, but you look at that act in a more mindful manner, you will see that temperature has nothing to do with that reaction. Because you can see this tonight at your dinner, the hand perceives temperature much more than our mouth perceives temperature. So something which is very hot, which is unbearable to hand, you can put it in mouth and enjoy it, right? But if you try to touch it with hand, it's quite unbearable. And we have this immediate involuntary reaction to take away our hand. So when we do things, when we react to things, are we reacting based on a habit? Now, don't listen or accept what I'm proposing to you. Don't reject it also. Just openly try to relate it to your experience. I'll tell you another incident which happened about a year ago. I had to extract one of my teeth, one of my tooth. It was giving pain, and then I went and wanted to extract it. So I told the doctor, I wanted to do Vedananupassana, which is a meditation. Right? I said, doctor, could you perform the surgery without any anesthetic drugs? The doctor said, look, Sadhu, I'm governed by the Hippocratic Oath. I can't do it to you. I will have to give you painkiller medication. So he anyway did it. And then I said, okay, I would not like to